Hey everyone, if you're here with me today, can you let me know if you can hear me on the microphone, please?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a power outage for several days here and I'm back in business, but it has definitely messed up my tech and I thought everything was good to go and it decided that it was not. So it took me just an extra minute and I just wanted to make sure that my microphone was good to go. Today I'm creating this design. It is the Advanced Artistry, working a little bit larger. I typically like to work on small stone size pieces, but I thought this would be a nice showstopper. So this is the shape that we're working on today. It is, should be a 12-inch MDF slice there. Give me just a second. Let me get situated. All right. So before we begin, this step is optional, but if you want a nice bright background, this is a good idea. So if you've got some white paint available, give this a coat of white. So I did the sample. You'll see on your cheat sheet here, your step-by-step guide, I did it on black, and I did that so that it would be easier for you to see in the step-by-step. This piece here I did straight on the wood, but it did dull the colors a little bit. So today I'm going to try with just a little bit of a white background, and it doesn't have to be full coverage, but I'm just going to put some white on here before we do the background color. All right, while I'm letting that dry, what we're going to use as far as paint and tools today. So in your box, you have a little sponge. This is what we're using the sponge for. And what I do, I'm going to have 3 different colors in my background. I'll just take this sponge and cut it into 3 pieces, and then I'll just toss it when I'm done. The reason why I like to do this is because if you wash it between colors, it holds onto water and it'll make it really sloppy. So you'll need this cut up into 3 pieces. It doesn't have to be long ways, just as long as you have some sponge available. And then in addition to our paint colors, which we've got black, which I don't use for this, we're using the red, orange, yellow, green, and purple. So you'll need those bottles. And then I'm also using the Nuvo drops as a finishing touch. So if you wanted to use those, have those available. Have your stencil. This is the 16 arm stencil in the boxes. I believe it was a clear one. I'm all discombobulated from not being able to see for the last couple days. So use the 16 arm stencil, so have that available. And then you will need your dotting tools. I'm just dropping everything. And then you're going to need one of your marking pencils. So that's what we're using today. Let me get up my extras so I'm not keeping a big mess here. All right, so I'm going to take the colors and put the colors in my palette. You'll want to choose what you'd like to use for your background. So on my sample, I used green in the center, yellow, and then orange. You can choose any 3 background colors. I am going to change it just so I don't have 2 of the same pieces today, but it's going to be the same effect. So maybe I'll choose red for the center. Let's do red, yellow, green is what I'll do for my background.
Tara, on your sample, is that orange, yellow, and then what's the center color?
The center color is the green.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so how I'm going to do this background is you kind of want to find your center, and you don't need a ruler to do this, but all right, so this is 10 inches, so my center is about 5 inches, so I'm just going to make a little mark at 5 inches there. What we do is you get your sponge and then choose whatever color you want for the center, and then you'll just kind of dip and dot, and I just kind of tap it out. Now this color, these paints, I will not be using these again for your box. These were very transparent, so you might want to do 2 layers, but I'll just kind of do a circle shape, and then you can set that down and go to your next color, and then I'm just going to follow alongside, and then you just overlap a little bit. I am finding that having the white makes it less forgiving than having the wood. So I definitely will need 2 coats. And when I did this, my spongy circles were not perfect. And you don't really notice in the finished piece. It just kind of fades from one to the other. So you don't have to worry too much about perfection. And this technique works really well on rocks as well, with the fading colors, and it makes a really pretty background. It just kind of levels up the look of the mandalas a little bit. And then I've got my colors on there. I'm just going to go back through with the center color all the way up to the green again. All right, I don't know how I feel about the white background compared to the wood background, but I know my arm is tired from dotting. But here's the difference. This one is a little more mottled, speckled, not speckled, but yeah, mottled, I guess is the right word. So we'll see how it compares when it's finished. All right, once you have this down, mine's still a little wet, so I'm gonna zap mine with my heat gun real quick. And then to get started, I'm going to find my center. My center should be 5 inches from the top, and then 5 inches from the longest side. It's right about here. And then once you find your center, we're going to make our markings with the 16-arm tool, or 16-arm stencil, and our marking pencil. Once I have those lines on there, what I'm going to do is in my north, south, east, and west, I'm just going to extend those. And I just do that by hand and kind of sketch that line out. You can use a ruler if this makes you uncomfortable or anything with a straight edge. If you want to do 8 of those lines, you can. Do as many as you need to be comfortable. I always feel like less is better because it's less to have to erase, but I don't typically work large, so I'm going to go ahead and do all 16. And I'm just going to make sure I've got enough paint in my wells. If you use it for your background, you might need to refill. I just like to make sure I've got enough in there that I can go over the edge of my tools. All right, and I am going to start with my center. I'm going to put a nice dime-sized Nuvo drop here in the middle. Oops, I've already made a mistake. Squirted. So I just kind of squeeze and swirl until I get a nice round center there. And if you need to, if you're not good at using the Nuvo drops right out of the bottle for the larger circles, you can always use your tool and kind of fix up that shape. I'm going to lower my camera just a bit while we're working on the center. If you're having trouble with the center, it should be about the same size as your yellow tool. If you just want to dot that, feel free to do that. That's totally your call. And then we're going to use the green stylus on the large end. And I'm going to do 8 dots with my red. I'm going to do my north, south, east, and west, and then the 4 in between. And where I'm doing red on red, it's not going to be as vibrant. But that's kind of the beauty of this background. I think my center dot is just a little off. It's driving me nuts. I don't know if that's just my camera or if it's my dot.
I'm sorry, Tara. Did you say what side of the green tool? The big or small?
The large, the big.
Oh, okay, thank you.
then I'm going to use the same tool, the large end of the green stylus, and I'm going to go out one row. And I'm going to put 8 of these, and these go in between each of the red. And there's 8 of those. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to add the center dots so that we end up with 16 of those purple. On your cheat sheet, they're just red, but on my sample, this is what I did. All right, for the next row, I'm going to use the pink rod here, and I'm going to use green paint, and you also need your mechanical pencil. And I'm going to start out with my north, south, east, and west. I'm going to make a dot, and we're going to turn it into a teardrop. Make sure you leave room. I did not leave much room. Let me try this one again. Until I'm off my game, I have to keep erasing today. So make sure you leave enough space. So we're going to make our circle, and then I'm going to use my pencil to pull that into a little pin, and then turn it into a teardrop. I'm going to do this for my north, south, east, and west, and then we're going to end up with 8 of these, but I'm going to do the 4 most important first. Ah, that is the worst possible thing that could have happened. My goodness. Some people are just not made for camera. On the struggle bus today. Let's see if I can recover.
I think I'm riding that bus with you.
Got lucky that a lot of those were dry. Wait, let me try that again without dropping my pencil. All right, so I've got my main 4. I'm going to come back through, and in between those, I'm going to add 4 more. So we have a total of 8 with 1 line in between. All right, then in between each of these 8 teardrops, I'm going to use my eraser, and I'm still going to stick with the green, and I'm going to add 1 eraser oval long ways on each line in between the teardrops. So if you're using the step-by-step guide, we just finished step 2. For the next step, I'm going to use my purple rod, and I'm going to use the red paint. And so we're going to add in between each of these teardrops, we're going to add 2 dots. Oops, I almost did it again. I almost put something in my paint. So you have a line where this oval is, and what I would do is kind of center the dot on each side of that line. So if I'm using this line, I'm going to put 1 dot here so that it barely touches that line, and then 1 dot here so that it barely touches that line. Let me show you what I mean. I'll hold it up to the camera as well. So 1 on each side, but in between the teardrops. That keeps it kind of centered there. And we ended up with 8 sets of those. And then I'm going to use my blue rod, and in the center here, I'm going to add a larger red dot on the line. And all 3 of these can touch. It's okay if they touch a little. These kind of remind me of pansies. So when we add the top dots to them, I feel like they kind of look like pansies a little bit. Right, now on the guide, we're on step 4. I'm going to use the green stylus, the large end, and I'm going to walk the dots with red around the edge of each of these. So my center dot is going to be with the large end, so I'm going to go around and do each center dot first. Green stylus, large end. And then I'm going to flip to the short end and walk the dots on each side. And I don't go completely to the green. I'm going to walk just around this larger circle. then we're going to walk the dots with another row, this time using yellow. So I'm going to go back to my Green Stylus large end. I'm going to put a yellow dot there in the center. And I'm going to walk the dots on each side with the yellow. Next, I'm going to use the eraser end, and I'm going to add an orange oval at the end of every petal here.
With the red, Tara?
I'm using orange.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
But you can use red. All right, then for the next step, we're moving on to step 6. In between each of these petals, we have a line, and I'm going to use the purple rod and add a small dot. And just to show you the placement, it's up by kind of in the center of those little flowery pieces that we made. And then right next to it, we're going to go up a size with the blue rod. And I use the same color, yellow. And I'm going to add a larger dot right next to it. And then I'm going to add a green oval on the same line. So it's yellow dot, and then green oval. And then I'm going to add a big old circle with my yellow rod and the green paint just next to the oval. So we're working in that same array. All right, I'm going to take some of the Champagne Nouveau drops and I'm going to put some of this in my palette here. We're going to use this just like paint for this part. So I'm going to use the green stylus on the large end, and I'm going to dip into the drops, and on each side, next to, I'm kind of working in between the oval and the circle. So in between, I'm going to add a dot on each side. And then I'm going to switch to the short side, or I'm sorry, the green stylus small side. And I'm going to use the paint just like I would any other paint. And on each side of this, I'm going to have a little swoosh kind of surrounding this green oval or green circle. Remember, you can always fix the shape of those if you need to using your pencil. Most of mine turned out okay. This is kind of a step within a step. So now I've got 8 of these on the lines next to the orange oval. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add green circles, and then I'm going to add the 2 dots and the swipes. So the green circles are with the yellow rod. And then it's the same process with the Nouveau drops. I'm going to use the large end of the green stylus to add 2 drops on either side in between the orange oval and the green dot. And then again, I'm going to use the small end to swipe on each side. So each one of these 16 green dots have the same pattern next to them. On our guide, we are on step 9. I am going to use the blue stylus, and we're going to repeat this pansy pattern. And I'm going to do this on every other line. So it's going to be on my north, south, east, and west, and then the 4 centered there. And I'm going to use my green rod. This is not green, and it's not a rod. What am I talking about? My blue rod and my red paint. Let's see. And so I'm going to do the same process where I make 1 dot on each side of the line. Here we go. So I do my 4 cardinal points first, north, south, east, and west, and then I'm going to do the 4 in between, so I'm going to end up with 8 of these. And once I have that, I'm going to use my pink rod, and then I am going to add a larger dot, just like we did with the other pansies, right in the center. All right, the next step is step 10. We're going to use our eraser and yellow. And we're going to add an oval right next to each large dot. And then next to those ovals, I'm going to use my green stylus large end, and I'm going to walk 3 dots next to that. So it's oval, dot, dot, dot. Oval, dot, dot, dot. All right, so we are on step 11. I'm going to use my green stylus, the large end, and I'm going to take, now my sample I use green. I've got a lot of green on my background, so I'm going to change my color. On the pattern, it's green. You can make an executive decision, whatever you want to do. But I'm going to walk the dots. So I'm going to have the large end of my green stylus, and in between the red circle and the yellow oval, I'm going to walk a few dots around each side and kind of frame that red dot there. And then I'm going to do the same with the yellow. I'm going to walk the dots around each side, again, of that circle. So green stylus, large end, yellow paint, and I'm just adding a second layer of dots here. Then we're moving on to step 12, and we're going to start filling in some of these empty areas with the other raised. I'm going to use my blue rod, orange paint, and what we're going to do here is we're going to do an orange dot. I'm going to use my green stylus, the large end yellow dot, and then another orange dot. So it's going to look like this. And so for each of these rows, next to the green, the large green dot, we're going to do orange, yellow, orange. And it's the blue rod, green stylus, large end. All right, next up here, we're going to continue working on the same area. And so I use my green stylus, the large end, for the center dot. And we're going to walk some dots in a curve, and it's going to create an S shape. Get a little more paint out. And so I'm going to use the small end of my green stylus here. And to make the S shape here, so if this is my center dot, I'm going to walk the dots up around on the right side of the top dot, and then the left side of the bottom dot, and it creates that swirl or that S shape. These are one of my favorite types of elements, is these little S curves.
I'm sorry, is that the small end or the large end of the stylus?
I use the large end for that center dot, and so I use the small end to go around the
Okay, thank you.
circles. So for the next part, we're going to add a little embellishment in between each of these areas. And I like to kind of cheat. So I'm going to take my marking pencil, and just beyond what we just did here, I'm just going to kind of draw a line to help guide my eye. And I'm just choosing a place like just right beyond the orange that we just did. And I'm just drawing a line kind of all the way around my circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's going to help me place these. And for this, I use the purple rod and the purple paint. And the first thing I do is I'm going to add a circle or a dot in between each one of these sections. And that's why I added that line there, is just to kind of help keep me on track as I move around. So there will be 16 circles. And then next to each one of these purple circles, you can either use your stylus tool, your green stylus tool on the large end, and you can use your Nuvo drops and create a set of 3 dots. I add a little triangle. I call it a crown. And so I will lift this up so you can see what I mean. So it's just 3 dots in a triangle shape. You can do that with your stylus, or if you're comfortable, you can use your bottle. And when you use these Nuvo drops, try to hold it straight up and down at 90 degrees. So whichever way you like best. All right, I'm gonna let this sit for just a moment longer, and then we're gonna do some top dots. Of course, when we do top dots, you can do them however you'd like. On the step-by-step guide on step 15, I'm gonna go back to these green dots in the center, and I'm gonna add a yellow top dot with my purple rod, and then I'm gonna pull it into a teardrop shape on top of the green, just like we did with the green. So you're gonna need that to be pretty dry in order to do that, but that's the next step there. All right, then for the next step, we're going to go back to these flower-like designs, and then I'm going to add a smaller dot in the center with purple wherever I have my red. So for the two smaller dots in here, that is the green stylus on the large end. And what I kind of do is make these dots go towards the center. So if you picture kind of that dot in the middle, let me bring this down just a bit. So I'm going to have two dots that kind of face this larger dot in the center. It's hard to see because of the reflection. But I add this purple in towards the middle, if that makes sense. And then for the larger dot, it's the purple stylus, or the purple rod. And that goes in towards the center as well. And in the very center of that little flower that we made, I'm going to add a dot with the Nuvo drops, but I'm going to let that dry first. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to add a little dot in the center to kind of finish off that flower. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the flowers out here. In between, I have this step here, which is to add a yellow top dot on each one of the green. So that's what I'm going to do next. And that yellow top dot is with the blue rod. I'm going to give these flowers up here just a little while longer to dry, but I'm going to do the purple on these. And so it's just important that you get a dot smaller than the background dot, the underside dot. So for this one, I'm going to use the purple rod for my two smaller. Actually, I'm going to use the purple rod for all three. There we go. Purple, purple, and purple. Around the edges here where these purple dots are, I'm going to add a center dot on that with the green stylus large end and the red paint. And from here on out, you can really kind of go crazy adding your own embellishment. So you have a lot of room in this design to add more to the pattern if you want to. You can add more top dots. So on my finished piece, now I've got 3 samples, but on this one, I added another round of top dots up here and over here. We've got the Nuvo Drop centers in the center of each flower. I'm going to wait until these dry a little bit before I add those in, but I add 1 drop of that champagne color in the center. You can add top dots pretty much wherever you want. So this is kind of where I leave you to play with your design. I will show you kind of the difference between the 2 backgrounds. So this is the one that I did on wood. The background is smoother, but the color is more muted. This one over here, the background is a little more mottled. This is the one that I did with the white. It's a little more patchy, but the colors are brighter. So there's no right or wrong there. And then this is the one I did on the black for the step-by-step guide. The black paint underneath mutes the colors a little bit, but totally changes the look of the design, even though it's all the same colors. So you can definitely have a play with it. I encourage you to spend, even if you set it aside and come back a little bit later, I encourage you maybe to come back and fill in some more of that space, add top dots, make it your own. And then I would love it if you would post it in the group for everyone to see. And thank you so much for joining, everyone. We will be back 1 week from today, October 7th. We have a guest speaker, Shalene, who's going to walk us through a step-by-step trick-or-treat mandala, which is going to be super fun. So I will see you all then. Have a good night, everyone.